Hello everyone, welcome back to the second part of the rack installation. Okay, so in the first part we have started grid infrastructure installation where we have prepared the three nodes for rack installation. We have seen various steps how to prepare different nodes for rack installation. So we have started grid infrastructure installation in the first part. So this is the end of the grid infrastructure installation. So after completing the installation, I see that there is one command that is failed during the grid infrastructure installation. But if you see the error that the cluster verification utility is failed, so I know the actual reason why it is failed. But if you want to investigate why it is failed, it is due to the reason that my IP IDs host to IP and IP to host and the scan IP is not resolved at the DNS. I'm using the host files because I do not have a separate DNS server to resolve my host to IP and IP to host. So if you want, you can investigate that, and as my environment is a test environment, I can ignore this failed utility and I can proceed further. But if you are on a corporate environment where you're installing the rack infrastructure or grid infrastructure, you need to make sure that none of the configuration utilities are failed. Okay, so if you want to see the log files where the log files are created, you can but this is my first node. Let me go to the directory. So here if you go to the logs directory, here you will see all the installation logs. Okay, if I open this file, you will see the complete summary of the installation. Okay, so if I come to the end of the log, this is what it says. So if you find, you can also review this log file to see if there are any error messages, and you have to take proper action if there are any error messages. Okay, as I told you, I have my grid infrastructure successfully installed, and let me verify if my installation is successful or not by querying the services. So I am into the grid user. This is what. Okay, so all my grid infrastructure services are started, and this is the status of the services. Okay, so that I can ignore the error that I got here. This is a cluster verification utility error, and this is due to the reason that I do not have the DNS setup in my environment. Okay, so that's it for the grid infrastructure installation. So now I'm going to start the database installation. Okay, so as I'm using a role separation method, I'm going to use the Oracle user for my database installation. Okay, so for the database to store its data, we need to have a disk group. So during the installation of the grid infrastructure, we have created a disk group OCR, which is storing the OCR and voting disk files and also the SP file, which needs to be on the common storage and needs to be accessible to all the nodes in my rack environment. Okay, now for me to store data for my database, I have to create disk group, a new disk group. Okay, now I am connecting to sys ASM. Please note this point that I am connecting to my ASM instance as sysASM, not as sysdba. Then only I will be able to create disk group. Okay, let me see what are the disks available in my environment. So this command will give me the list of disks available. Call name for okay. Now let me execute that command. So I have selected this disk for creating the OCR disk group. Now I'm going to create a new disk group. Create disk group. I'm going to create a disk group data. Okay, so I'm going to use external redundancy disk I'm going to use 2 disks, or I can also use 3 disks. So it is up to you how many disks you want to use for your database data. Okay, I'm going to use 3 disks. Okay, my disk group is created. Let me verify from here. So all these 3 disks are created in the data disk group. Okay, now let me go back and see my disk group status. So here it is my data disk group, and right now it is mounted and available only to node 1. Okay, now I need to mount, or I need to make sure that my data disk group that is created here is only on the node 2 and node 3 also. Now what I have to do is I have to mount the data disk group on ASM2 and ASM3 also. So for that I'm just connecting to the other nodes as well to mount 242 is my second node. Read user. Now my environment is set to ASM2. Okay, so alter disk group, data is my disk group, mount. Okay, let me see here the status. So here now it is mounted on second instance. Now let me mount the disk group on third ASM instance as well. See here, my data disk group is now mounted on the 3 ASM instances that I have in my grid infrastructure. Now my instance is ready to go ahead and configure the database. Okay, now let me start the database installation. Okay, here I am just skipping that. Let's next. Fine. So that is the end of the grid infrastructure installation, and I have already created a disk group for my database to store its data. Okay, now I am with the grid user. Now I have to go back to connect as Oracle user to start my database binaries installation. Okay, now here I am. Now let me go to the software location, db database. Okay, now I am starting the database installation. Okay, so it launched my run installer and I'm starting the RDBMS binaries installation on my rack nodes. I just unselected the checkbox and pressing next, so that is fine. So skip any software updates. So here there are three options: create and configure a database. I'm not configuring a database because I want to run DBCA manually. So I'm just installing the software RDBMS binaries. For creating a database, I'm going to run the DBCA in silent mode that I want to show you as a command, just so that you have this command syntax which is used to create a database in using DBCA. Okay, so here it is, real application cluster database installation. It is not a standalone installation, a single database installation. Okay, I'm going to install binaries on the three nodes. So I selected all the three nodes. It is by default selected only one node. You have to select all the nodes. Okay, here also you can just select the SH connectivity. So let's see if I have already set up or not. So it is already established, but if you do not have established, you can set it up here using this. So that is the reason I specified in the first part that you do not need to configure this user equivalence manually. The uninstall will automatically take care of it. So I'm selecting only language English. I'm going to install the enterprise edition. So I have already set a Oracle base environment variable. So the Oracle home is already pick up. So once again, as I am installing 12c, but the directory structure is created like I'm installing 11g release 2, but that's fine. So when you're installing 12c, just have proper directory structure in your environment. Okay, here you need to select proper groups for your environment. So we have install and DBA groups. So if you want to select database administrator OS group, you can you can select O install, but keeping DBA as a default group for your database installation, that is also fine. So it's up to you to keep either O install as a group for your installation or DBA. So that's fine. So as I told you, there are some new groups created or introduced in 12c. Those are OS backup DBA and OS DZ DBA. And if you have created separate groups for these groups, you can select those. But I have not created. I also explained in the part 1 that I am not creating it. Okay, so if you want, you can create and you can select here the corresponding groups required for you. Here it is doing the prerequisite checks before installing the RDBMS binaries on rack nodes. So that's it. It completed the prerequisite checks. Again, the same reason for why it failed here. So I do not have the DNS. I am just using the etc host for my host to resolve to IP IDs. Okay, so I can ignore this failed case, but the other two conditions are the warnings. I can ignore those warnings as well. Okay, now I'm ignoring these and I'm proceeding further. So this is the summary of what it is doing as a part of installation. Now let's start the installation. So it started installation. It will take some time for binaries installation. After completing the binaries installation, we have to create database using DBCA utility. So as a part of RDBMS binaries installation, it is now asking me to run root.sh. So I need to run root.sh on all the 3 nodes in the rack cluster. So let me start running this script. So this is the third node. 01 app. So I completed running root.sh on all the 3 nodes. We go back to the installation and press OK. So that's it. The RDBMS binaries installation is now done. Now the final step that is left is to create the database using the RDBMS binaries that I have already created. So I'm going to use DBCA in silent mode to create the database. So I'm going to show you the syntax which I'm going to use to create database in a silent mode. Okay, so this is the syntax. So I'm going to show you syntax in different lines so that you will have the complete syntax. Okay, so this is the complete syntax that I'm going to use for database creation, and I'm going to keep ORCL as my database name. And one important thing that you need to understand here is the password. So this is the password which you have created while installing the grid infrastructure. So all other parameters are the straightforward parameters, you can directly use them. And the disk group name, so actually the disk group that we have created to keep the database data is the data disk group, so that is available here, data disk group. Okay, so now that is what I am going to execute. Let me change here. This is data disk group. Now I am going to execute this script in a VNC session. So before executing, let me verify Oracle home and also Oracle base. Okay, both are fine. Now it started my database creation. It will take some time. So before ending this demo, let me also show you the directories where you will find the RDBMS installation log files. So it is, so here you will find logs, and here is the place where you will find all the installation activities for your RDBMS binaries. Okay, so we have started creating the database. Okay, so here the dbca log files will be available. The location, so it should be in the adcfg location. So this is the cfg location. This is for the grid installation, but for RDBMS binaries you usually have the same CFG location in this location. It's not yet created. You see, this is what's happening here. Okay, so it is waiting for password, that is why it is not created the directories where it is about to create the log files. Let me see if this time it has created any log files or not. Yeah, this time it is created the log files. So this is the directory where you will find the dbca log files. Okay, so that's it. So after successful completion of the dbca, we are going to have a database created as a resource in a clusterware. Okay, so thanks for watching this demo. That's it. So please prepare your environment for grid infrastructure installation, install grid infrastructure, and then install Oracle database as a resource in grid infrastructure. If you have any doubts, please keep me posted, or you can comment on this video demo. I'll be replying to your doubts. Thanks for watching this demo. Have a nice day. Bye.